The receipt fluttered to the greasy garage floor as the luxury SUV roared away, leaving behind a stunned little boy, a silent mechanic, and one unpaid bill worth only $199. The woman behind the wheel never looked back. She had just publicly accused a struggling single father of trying to scam her, refused to pay him for honest work that had saved her from a dangerous highway breakdown, and drove off with a smile of victory. What she didn't know was that within 24 hours, her own father would hand that same mechanic a check for $19 million, and the reason would change every life involved forever. If you believe kindness always finds its way back, if you believe forgiveness is stronger than pride, and if you believe people deserve second chances, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to our channel so our community can continue sharing stories that inspire hope. Every morning, Rowan Mercer unlocked the faded doors of Mercer Auto Repair before sunrise, even though the first customers never arrived until later in the morning. The little shop sat on the edge of a quiet American town where most people drove older pickup trucks and family sedans. Rowan wasn't early because business demanded it. He came early because his 8-year-old daughter, Claire, loved eating breakfast at the tiny desk inside the office before school. Since losing his wife to a sudden illness 4 years earlier, every morning had become a carefully balanced routine built around love, responsibility, and sacrifice. Rowan prepared toast on a small electric grill, packed Claire's lunch, braided her hair after watching online tutorials for months, and reminded her every day that she was the strongest little girl he knew. Their life wasn't easy. Bills piled higher every month. Some weeks Rowan skipped meals just to keep Claire's school activities funded because he refused to let grief steal her childhood too. The garage had earned a reputation for honesty instead of flashy advertisements. Rowan never replaced parts that still worked. He often charged less than neighboring repair shops because he remembered what it felt like to choose between fixing a car and buying groceries. Customers trusted him because he explained every repair with patience instead of confusing technical language. Even people who couldn't afford full payments usually found Rowan willing to arrange affordable plans. Late one sunny afternoon, an expensive silver SUV rolled into the parking lot trailing smoke from beneath the hood. Behind the wheel sat Celeste Hawthorne, the newly appointed CEO of Hawthorne Global Industries, a massive manufacturing company whose name appeared on buildings across several states. She had inherited leadership after years of elite education, executive coaching, and boardroom success, but somewhere along that journey she had also inherited an unfortunate belief that wealth automatically proved intelligence. She barely acknowledged Rowan before pointing impatiently toward her vehicle. She explained that every other repair shop nearby had quoted outrageous prices. Rowan calmly inspected the engine, quickly finding a damaged coolant hose and a loose clamp that threatened to destroy the engine if ignored. The replacement took less than an hour. He cleaned every spilled drop of coolant, double-checked the pressure, and even inspected the brakes without charging extra because he noticed Claire watching proudly from the office window. When Rowan presented the invoice, the total came to exactly $199. Celeste stared at the paper as if it were an insult. She questioned every line on the invoice despite receiving detailed explanations. She insisted the repair couldn't possibly be worth that amount. She hinted that small-town mechanics often exaggerated problems to exploit wealthy travelers. Rowan remained calm through every accusation. His hands were still stained with engine grease while hers held an expensive designer handbag worth several times more than the repair bill. Without another word, Celeste crumpled the invoice, tossed it onto the floor, entered her SUV, and drove away after declaring that honest businesses didn't need to chase customers for money. Claire silently picked up the wrinkled receipt. She looked at her father with confused eyes and quietly asked whether they had done something wrong. Rowan forced a smile that barely hid the pain in his face. He gently explained that sometimes people forgot kindness because life taught them to trust money more than character. Then he folded the damaged invoice, placed it inside a drawer, and continued working because rent was still due whether customers paid or not. The next morning brought another busy stream of repairs, oil changes, and inspections. Rowan buried himself in work, refusing to waste energy feeling angry. Claire left for school with a hug and a promise that everything would be okay. Around noon, several black vehicles stopped outside the garage. Neighbors paused to watch as professionally dressed men stepped out. Rowan assumed someone important needed emergency repairs. Instead, an elderly gentleman exited the final car carrying a simple leather folder. His posture reflected decades of leadership, but his eyes carried something much heavier than authority. They carried regret. The man introduced himself as Theodore Hawthorne. The name immediately sounded familiar. He was the founder of Hawthorne Global Industries and Celeste's father. Rowan expected lawyers. Instead, Theodore quietly asked if they could speak privately. Inside the small office, Theodore noticed Claire's family photograph resting beside the cash register. He studied the picture for a long moment before removing a folded receipt from his jacket. It was the same crumpled invoice for $199. He had found it inside his daughter's SUV earlier that morning. After asking what happened, Theodore had requested security footage from the company's vehicle cameras, expecting to defend his daughter. Instead, he watched every minute of Rowan's respectful service, every calm explanation, every unfair accusation, and the heartbreaking moment Claire picked the receipt off the floor. Theodore admitted that he felt ashamed. Not because of the unpaid bill. Because somewhere along the years he had become so focused on building an empire that he had failed to teach his daughter the value of ordinary people. Then Theodore revealed something Rowan never expected. More than 40 years earlier, Theodore himself had once been a struggling mechanic. His own father had operated a tiny repair garage almost identical to Rowan's. During one difficult summer, another businessman had refused to pay a repair bill that kept Theodore's family from buying groceries. The memory had shaped his determination to build something better. Success eventually erased the financial struggle. But watching Celeste repeat that same cruelty reminded Theodore how easily families forget where they came from. He slowly opened the leather folder. Inside rested a certified check worth $19 million. Rowan stared without understanding. Theodore explained that months earlier he had quietly created an investment initiative dedicated to preserving honest independent repair shops across the country. The program had remained unsigned because Theodore couldn't decide who truly represented the values he wanted to support. Yesterday answered that question. It wasn't Rowan's mechanical skills that impressed him. It was the way Rowan refused to lose his dignity despite being humiliated. It was the gentle way he comforted Claire instead of filling her heart with bitterness. It was the decision to continue serving customers with integrity after injustice. The $19 million would establish the Mercer Community Automotive Foundation, providing affordable vehicle repairs for struggling families, scholarships for aspiring mechanics, apprenticeships for single parents rebuilding their lives, and emergency transportation assistance for people who couldn't afford safe vehicles. Theodore insisted the money wasn't charity. It was an investment in character. News traveled through town faster than anyone expected. People who had once overlooked Rowan's little garage suddenly discovered the remarkable man who had quietly helped hundreds of neighbors for years without seeking recognition. Teachers remembered free repairs before school trips. Nurses remembered discounted brake replacements. Retired veterans remembered anonymous winter tire donations. The community realized that Rowan's greatest wealth had never been money. It had always been compassion. Meanwhile, Celeste faced consequences no boardroom presentation could soften. Her father required her to spend several weeks visiting every community program funded by the new foundation. She wasn't allowed to attend as CEO. She attended as a volunteer. She watched single mothers reach work safely after receiving affordable repairs. She met elderly couples whose only transportation had been saved from expensive replacement costs. She listened to apprentices describe how meaningful employment transformed their confidence. Each story quietly dismantled the pride she had mistaken for strength. Eventually Celeste returned to Rowan's garage carrying nothing except the original $199 folded neatly inside an envelope. There were no photographers. No executives. No speeches. Only humility. She admitted that success had convinced her everyone wanted something from her. She had forgotten that some people simply wanted to do honest work. Rowan accepted the envelope. Then he surprised everyone. He placed the money into the foundation's donation box reserved for families unable to afford emergency repairs. He explained that the debt had already been paid long before the envelope arrived. The real payment was seeing someone choose growth instead of excuses. From that day forward, Celeste became one of the foundation's strongest supporters. She personally funded apprenticeship programs, encouraged corporate volunteer projects, and spent time listening instead of leading. Employees noticed the difference immediately. Meetings became conversations instead of commands. Decisions began considering families instead of quarterly reports. Her transformation wasn't instant perfection, but genuine change rarely is. Years later, the Mercer Community Automotive Foundation had expanded across multiple states. Thousands of families kept their jobs because reliable transportation remained affordable. Hundreds of young mechanics graduated debt-free through scholarships bearing Claire Mercer's name after she grew up and joined her father in running the foundation. The little girl who once picked a crumpled receipt off the floor became a symbol of resilience for countless children facing difficult circumstances. The faded garage still stood where everything began. Rowan refused to replace it with a luxury building. He believed people needed reminders that extraordinary stories often begin in ordinary places. Visitors frequently noticed the original unpaid receipt framed behind the office desk. Next to it hung a copy of the $19 million check. Below both frames rested a small handwritten note. It simply read that kindness always earns interest, even when the world insists it has no value. Before we reach the end of this story, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment sharing a time when kindness, honesty, or forgiveness changed someone's life, or perhaps even your own. Your words may become the encouragement another person desperately needs today. As the afternoon sunlight poured through the garage doors, Rowan watched Claire laugh with new apprentices while families drove away safely in repaired vehicles they could actually afford. Theodore smiled quietly from a nearby bench, grateful that one painful mistake had ultimately restored a forgotten family legacy. Celeste stood beside volunteers handing out repair vouchers instead of business cards, finally understanding that leadership begins with humility rather than authority. The unpaid bill that once represented disrespect had become the seed of hope for thousands of strangers, proving that integrity may not always receive immediate reward, but it never goes unnoticed forever. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Remember that even the smallest act of honesty can echo far beyond what we ever imagine, and sometimes the greatest fortunes are born from the simple decision to remain kind when the world gives us every reason not to.